Welcome everybody to episode 12 of the Hockey Toolkit. I am Trevor DiCarlo.
I'm Andrew Trumbull, co-host.
You are the talent. I am just the brains of the operation when things actually work.
I know for a fact I couldn't be the brains, so that works for me.
I got very few brain cells, so I'm using what I can, but I think that this is going to be a phenomenal episode for everybody involved at any level, parents, coaches, players, especially players, but mainly parents and players. And then we got a great guest with some very insightful information on the recruiting side of at the college level, NCAA. But before we jump into that, Andrew, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, so our seasons have finished up. It's kind of a slow period as the recruiting season for junior hockey really starts to kick in over these next couple weeks. We recently made a trip out to Buffalo, New York with our U16 teams and competed in the national tournament. Teams really performed very well. I'm very proud of the teams and the kids and the families that jumped in and we took those challenges head on. Really, you have certain moments in your program or your teams when you're you're really proud of the kids. And I think that obviously when you win a championship or things like that, you're proud of the kids. But you don't always have those moments when you don't win. You have those moments when you have some kind of, they dig deep and they find success. And certainly I experienced that this weekend with the group of kids we have. So shout out to our U16 Wolves. Super proud of those kids. How about you, Trevor?
Well, first of all, congrats to, the teams and to you.
Thank you.
I was seeing it pop up all over social media and, I was like, hey, I know this guy. I know the team that he's working with. So what I've lately, just been, had a little bit of spring break, action. So we've, had kids, we had 1 week of practice, in like a skill session, and then we took a week off and now we're right back on it. We actually have our first tournament already next weekend.
Wow.
And it's the spring season, so it's more or less just kind of seeing what the kids are going to look like potentially for fall. And then, just making it fun for them right now and hopefully, within the 7-8 weeks that the season is, hopefully they learn something, but most of all, hopefully they have some fun. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then, just looking to see what I can do this summer, clinic wise, my own stuff and everything else in between. So I can't, not a whole lot, but,
the hockey season really is compartmentalized. Obviously you have your winter season, which is, your primary season where you have September or late August to March or whatever. Spring season is a unique beast, definitely. And then you have your summer season, which are camps or things like that. I know this isn't the topic of the day, but what is your favorite season for hockey?
For me, I really like. It's a tie, but I would say I really like the beginning of the season. We touched on this last episode. With the, taking players, like when you're selecting your teams, I really enjoy that time because you're full of excitement, like, all right, you're taking it. And while there is some nervous energy in there as well, cause you're like, am I making the right picks here and this and that? There's a lot of like just optimism, and then you get into the regular season and then it's just like you realize what you got. So it's all crashing downhill. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But no, I mean, I like that aspect because it's like you're hopeful, not only hopeful, but you're just so enthused to be back at the rink, everything back to the, quote unquote grind. But, for guys like you and I, we love that grind.
Sure.
So I say I really like the beginning. So it's that fall part.
Yep.
I think the worst for me is usually like just kind of the middle, and I say middle, but I don't like February's and I don't like March's because I know that my season's coming to an end.
The dog days of winter.
Yeah. And again, I know that's like playoff time and, all that, which again, I love that too, but it's like, it's kind of not sad. I mean, it's sad in a certain way of that, I've loved what I've been doing that year with those kids and, I'm going to miss out, it's like I'm going to miss it, so you've got that routine already set up and now all of a sudden routine's going to change eventually because season will be over. So, again, it's just kind of bittersweet is what it really is. So, but yeah, that
Yeah.
beginning of the year though, I really love that. How about yourself, Coach?
I like obviously playoff season when you have a good team, you go into the playoffs, you can game plan and get ready for a series, things like that. I really enjoy that, obviously. But then on the other side, what I like to what makes me smile the most, it's summer hockey. It's like going to camps. Like I love, I have 6 camps this summer here in New Hampshire. They're all different styles, whether a weekend camp or a week long or one day. But those are so much fun. Just having kids come to hockey camp and doing hockey card trivia and playing for the Scoring Concepts Cup and the whole thing. It's just like summer hockey it's a lot of fun. And when you get 8, 9, 10-year-olds and you can see a big jump in their game, but you can also see a lot of smiling faces. I love it.
No, yeah, and it's for me again. It's that's one thing I do miss about with me not working full time in hockey anymore. At this moment, that said, if you're listening and you're looking for someone, you can call my agent. But if I could even afford an agent. But yeah, that's one thing I do miss is the summers because you've got all those camps and all those different as you said, we used to do like theme camps, like stick handling camp or and you don't really get to do that during this, the regular season. You might have one like for not Labor Day, but like President's Day or maybe like a spring or winter break camp. I don't know why I keep saying all these things that are in springtime almost, or summer. But yeah, I do miss that. So you said 6 camps you're holding this year. And then you're doing some, was I just see it today that you're doing some type of, off ice, road hockey?
Oh, we're doing some street hockey. Yeah.
Nice.
So, the rink, they take the ice out here in Laconia in today, they take the ice out and then they don't put it back in until August.
Okay.
So I do my camps at Plymouth State or a rink called Waterville Valley. It's like a ski town about an hour north. But that ice, the facility in Laconia is pretty unused. And I've done, different things with street hockey throughout the years, whether it's a one-day drop-in or Sunday nights or things like that. But I really wanted to commit to doing, because we got to grow the sport here in the Lakes region. There's not a lot of kids who are picking up a stick or putting on skates for the first time. So we're going to do a month-long Sunday nights drop-in street hockey right at the Merrill Fay Arena. And I've already gotten 30 emails about kids who want to come. And I'm really excited about it. It's going to be great. And it's that time of the year, too. It's hot in the building, so you can work out a good sweat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to score some goals. I'm pretty excited about it.
That's fantastic.
That front, and it's good. I'm going to do some damage.
That's awesome. We did that one year out here. We did we didn't actually. They took the ice down at the rink I was working at, and we ended up doing an off ice camp the whole summer. Every week
That's awesome.
We had at the time access to an outdoor rink that was used for roller players or whatever. Because it was a park district thing, we were able to go out there and use it. We went twice a day and we did a whole bunch of different, just athletics type stuff. But then also, you got hockey and then you play your road hockey. And then, we were working out of a gym at one point, cause it was park district. So, and the kids could go play basketball or we do some more hockey type stuff. Honestly, it was outside the box because, every year we'd always do ice camps. And that one year we couldn't because we really had no sheets of ice. So it was outside the box and it was fun. It was awesome. So, it's also back to the game's grassroots there,
Totally. I love it. Can't wait to get started. Now tell me our topic of the day.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
excited about this topic. I'm in the thick of it right now with our teams, recruiting. And we want to look at it from we got a college coach's perspective, but we also want to get the perspective of things that maybe athletes can do to make themselves more attractive or athletes shouldn't do to kind of stay away from certain things. So recruiting is our topic for the week. Trevor, hit us up with some of your best ideas for kids who are looking to go to college or junior to get recruited at the prospective next level.
So we're going to talk, I think, I've talked about it, how we could split this up into 2 different segments. So, cause you've got recruiting not only at the junior level, but also at the college level. And some kids don't even, the top 1.5%, they don't even have to hit the junior level, but, pretty much everybody else hits the junior level in order to get to that, college level. But, some of my best advice is always, and we do touch on this with our interview with, Coach Power as well, we've talked about it before, is, especially at the college level, make sure wherever you're looking, make sure they have what you want to major in. And make sure those are things that are important for us, for you as a player. And realize that there's so much out there, hockey wise, that it doesn't, NCAA D3, ACHA, D1, those levels are almost, some of them, could beat others at those levels. There's just so much hockey out there. So don't get too narrow minded in the sense of like your tunnel vision of, hey, I got to do this. And if I don't, it's the end of the world. Like, look at all your options out there, because there's so many of them. And again, I just saw on the Hockey Planner posted an article today about.
I heard that's pretty good.
It is. But you had the one, you had the infograph of the scoring areas, but yeah. I've got the infograph of the. It's somewhat similar of like player, where everybody's coming from pro wise. Like,
oh, nice.
I don't want to be the one to burst anyone's bubble, but it's more or less just not everybody's going to be able to make the NHL. Not everybody's going to be able to make the, the female professional leagues, whatever those levels are. So it's, just try and keep an open mind, see what you can get to and do your best at each level. And again, you always want to, try and get to that next higher level, but don't try and get the point. Don't go from A to C. Try and make sure that you're hitting A, B, and then get to C. So, I mean, there's a lot I could, kind of say and suggest, but I don't want to take away too many of our myths that we'll end up talking about.
Absolutely.
But what about yourself? What do you got for any, players out there right now?
Number one, I'd say do the work. So it's a couple things on that. Like, number one, you got to do the work. Like, it's not about a good weekend. Okay, if I have a good 2 or 3 games here, Lindenwood's going to come calling. No, you got to do the work, and it's going to be years of work to get to that next level. It's not going to happen overnight. So you can't just hope for a good weekend. You got to put in the work, and then do the homework.
Yeah.
So don't just this school likes me, so I'm just going to go there. Then you get on campus, and it's an all boys school in the middle of Iowa. And it doesn't have your major. Like, you got to know what you're signing up for.
That sounds depressing.
Not to hate on Iowa. I'm sure Iowa's lovely, but you have to do.
Come on.
You have to do the homework. You got to know what you're signing up for. So, Lindenwood may come calling, but if they don't have your academic major and you want to be whatever you want to be, it's not going to help you down the road. So you're going to have to look at other options. So I would say that it's the work plus the homework that can lead to the path where you want to get to.
And I think you brought up, you said it homework wise, and I think it also has a double meaning of you need to also make sure your schoolwork's up to par too. Like, just don't get too focused on those athletics, because at the end of the day, in college, you are a student athlete, not an athlete. You're a student athlete. Your grade point average does matter. Your test scores do matter. Now, again, do you have to be the most, brainiest kid in the world? No. Unless you're trying to get into Harvard or Yale. But make sure you're focusing on that, because I have talked to coaches before who were like, yeah, I really like the kid, but couldn't keep his GPA up, or his scores were so bad. And again, not everybody's the greatest student. I completely understand that, but you're going to have to at least make an attempt. Because if it comes down to you and another player, and you as a player, you've been sloughing off in high school and you got a 2.0, the other kid's got a 2.5, but you're slightly better, or, maybe they got a 3.0. That's 2.5 it's not fair. Say a 3.0. If the coach, most likely for their numbers, they're going to go with the kid who's got a 3.0, even if you are just a slightly better player or you hit slightly better stats, they're most likely going to go with that kid who had the 3.0 because it's safer bet on their side. So,
for sure.
The
higher percentage you're going to get that kid for 4 years if he's a good student. If the kid's going to on the verge of failing out, you got him for 1 year, I'll take the kid for 4 years any day.
Right. So, I know it's another buzzword and going around, but it's like you want to stack the deck in your favor. You want to have as many cards as you can so that, again, give them every reason not to cut you, every reason to take you, So yeah, make sure you're doing your homework and make sure you're keeping your test scores up, and again, so that's my 2 cents. I mean, that's one thing I wish when I was coming up that I would have, would have done a little bit better. I always thought, oh yeah, C's will get the degrees, but but again, I mean, not that it held me back from. Well, I mean, it did honestly. Actually, if we're being thrown out there, yeah. I mean, when I played at Robert Morris, I could have saved my family and myself some money. Because I could have had another grant added on. I just didn't have the test scores, and because my ACT score was at a certain point, I did well in the ACT, right? But because my GPA wasn't there, because I didn't really, I was like, what's homework, but because I didn't do that, like that held me back and held back money that could have gone right into my schooling. So I mean, I know firsthand what it's like, and don't make that mistake if you're out there.
Absolutely. Now, before we throw it over to Coach Powers with Lindenwood, I got one story to tell you. I don't know if I've actually said this story before, but I'm going to go for it.
Shoot.
So my dad ran the Ocean Hockey School for a lot of years in Bricktown, New Jersey, mid-'90s. He had a young coach who came on for the summer staff for a couple summers in a row. He was the assistant coach at North Adams State. Really great guy. He had just finished up playing at SUNY Cortland. And he was really an eager beaver who wanted to work all the time and build his network of coaches. His name was Derek Lamont. So he worked for a number of years at the Ocean Hockey School in the summers. And then I went to play junior here in Laconia, and he got hired to be the assistant coach at Lebanon Valley College, which was a new college, Division III, in the middle of Pennsylvania. And he had me that summer, like the year before, I toured North Adams State and was interested, but I wanted to go play the year junior, and he thought it would be a good idea to do play the year junior. But let alone the next spring, he said, we'd like you to come to Lebanon Valley, check out the school. We'd like you to come here. So I drive out with my mom from New Jersey. It's about a 4-hour drive. And I was like, Mom, I don't really know much about this school, but I think it's in the middle of nowhere. And she was like, well, Coach Derek, and he's a good guy, and he wouldn't steer you right on the path. Yeah, let's just go check out the school. And we're driving past, I probably hadn't been out past Philly in my life from New Jersey. So all of a sudden we get past Philly, and it's like, well, there's another cornfield. Oh, it smells like cows out here. This is interesting. And we're like now an hour deep past Philly. And I'm like, Mom, I think we're getting towards like Amish country. And she was like, it is not Amish country. You're not even giving this place a chance. I'm driving out all this way. Literally, as she said that, we looked up at an overpass, and there was a broken down horse and buggy. The wheel had fallen off this thing. And I was like, Mom, this is crazy. I'm not going to function here. So we went and met with, Coach Derek, and there was another, he was the assistant coach, was a head coach, and they ran a great program. And actually, like everything Derek Lalonde touched, they went from being a starter-up program to like being, one of the top teams in Division III within a year or two. And then he moved on to further heights. But I chose the opposite of that, and I went to Buffalo. Which was the opposite.
Sounds like it.
So I think that's a good segue to go over to Jason Powers, running a great program as the assistant coach at Lindenwood, and now we'll put his interview in right here with one of the best in the country.
Welcome, everybody, to this interview. We've got Jason Power, currently with Lindenwood University. Jason is the assistant coach over there. This was your first season at the NCAA level, correct? Correct. Okay. Well, Jason, I mean, why don't you give us a little bit of a bio about yourself?
Oh, geez, that's a loaded bio.
Yeah.
Headed into my 25th year of coaching, spent decade plus doing midgets and youth hockey. Got into junior hockey landscape around 2008, 9, I believe. Started coaching Tier 3 in the now defunct Great Lakes Junior Hockey League. Moved up to the North American League with Springfield. Also had a pit stop with Topeka, in the North American League. Went on to the USHL, both Omaha and Lincoln, and then joined Lindenwood. This was my 4th season there. It was kind of an opportunity to basically, I live in St. Louis, my family's here, and so I couldn't pass it up, so joined them at the ACHA ranks, which is phenomenal hockey. I don't think it gets enough credit. And, part of when I got over there, it was, hey, here's the game plan. We want to make this jump. And I was like, oh, rock, let's do it. So we kind of created, a game plan in terms of, where my background came in. It was all the recruiting and then scheduling and so forth. And, it was right COVID hit, but we managed to still piece together, 3 conference championships that I was there for. They had won 2 previous. And then we won the national tournament last year before we made the jump to NCAA Division I this year. So it's been a fun time. We kind of laugh. You look at, obviously the program's phenomenal program. It was well intact before I got there. Coach Zombo, runs a tight ship. The culture is there. He and I see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. So it was a natural fit for me. So it was like, yeah, perfect. Let's do this. And then I was able to bring in some stuff that kind of just made it all a little, filled in some gaps, and then obviously the goaltending background. So it was just, it works, and then we just kind of giggle. Sometimes we'll be out on the road. Like, who would have thought this would have been the reality 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and, and whatnot. So we keep pushing away.
That's great, Jason. I think that that brings us really into our theme for the night is recruiting and some of the pitfalls and things that you see a lot in recruiting, and your experience, background coaching and recruiting at the junior level and now coaching at the NCAA Division I level. If there's one piece of advice that you could give to a prospective athlete, what would that advice be?
2 pieces. Don't give up and dominate. That would be without question. I now at the NCAA Division I level, I'm probably getting nothing short 30, 40 emails a day. And it can be kids all over the scope, a kid that played high school hockey that just, doesn't understand the ladder and the path, guys that are playing in juniors, respect the leagues, or, unfortunately we'll touch on the portal in a bit, but, it's April. So you're starting to see all these O2s and their advisors throwing what we call Hail Marys, just like, it'll be a great walk on. Like, well, I could fill a whole arena, of that kind of guy, and you respect their trying, and sometimes you find an apple, but it's don't give up, but more importantly, dominate. The thing that I wish I could respond to every single player and kind of give them some cliff notes, but that you can't really. But it's one of these things. You get an email from a kid and you're going, you played 7 games, you had no points. Like, how do you feel it qualifies you? And it's not like, you're in the USHL in 7 games and there was an injury and there's a backstory. You're like, okay, we all know it, but it's, from a league that I might not typically scout, and you're just kind of going, and then at the end of the day, I don't think people understand or respect, the amount of hours that we put in as a staff. We got a guy in our office, Mark, who's a savant, and he watches more video than I do. And, but I'm also the guy that's on the road and in the rinks. You see stuff in person you don't always see on video. You just got to take that body of information and cull it down and continue to narrow and then approach. But I don't think a lot of people truly respect the amount of diligence in today's world, especially with the media, with all the video that's available online and all the applications like Instat and Lead Prospects and RinkNet that's available to us for us to do our diligence and, call through all the info. So sometimes you get emails from kids and it's like, like you're already well aware of the person or whatnot. They just, they can be a poet in an email. It's like, well, you're not selling me on it, so. But
now, is there anything that happens? You get these emails, right? You obviously scout a ton in person. You also you watch a lot of video, but emails are a hot button issue because you can just fire them off to any coach in the country. If you could give a kid, a word of advice that's coming from a Division I coach on an email, what would that look like?
So interestingly enough, I wrote an article like in 2011 on this. Back in the day, guys would mail you DVDs of themselves. Now we got YouTube, but every year somebody finds it and then resurfaces it and goes, holy shit, it's still applicable. I go, keep it like a mini skirt, short and sweet. Make me want more, send me an email. Hey, send me an email. Sometimes I respond to guys going, hey, we're full, but I passed your name on to so-and-so. I do that all the time, but you get emails and it can be like, Dear Coach Power in one color font and size, and then boop, the body of the text is purple, and I go, I know you're just forwarding it, so
copy and paste.
Yeah, but part of me is kind of like, you didn't put in the time, so why should I? Maybe that's the wrong approach, but I sit there for
advice.
7-8 hours a day just on the laptop. I'm running a laptop with a secondary monitor and an iPad. All my brain's just on this highway. But keep it short. Just be like, dear Coach Andrew, my name's Jason Power. I'm a 6'5" goalie. I wish, I play in this league. I played here. Here's 3 references. I'd love to talk to you more. Here's a link to my elite prospects. I have videos available on Instat if you have the time. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you. If you have an advisor, not saying that you need an advisor, this is my advisor's contact info as well. And so you have something. The other thing I always tell people is, like, you got to find some kind of a commonality. I don't think people really appreciate that. I was in sales for 30 years, and so a guy would walk into, I used to work for Guitar Center, guy walks in, and if he's wearing like snakeskin boots, he's not a country music fan. He's probably in love with the 80s rock. And you're just like, bro, and you start talking about some concert, and he catches on, and you start with this bond, and then you start doing the sales pitch. So it's kind of,
right.
If it was, hey, Coach Power, my grandfather was born in Romania. I see you coach the Romanian national team. What a small world. Now I'm kind of hooked, but the miniskirt effect, like, I'm reading it going, oh, no kidding. Like, I might reach out, like, what city was he from? Hell, I might have met the guy. It's just one of those things. Find a commonality, or, oh, I played with so-and-so on your roster, or, a guy that I skated with in the summer, I was so impressed with him, and he was at Lindenwood, and his name was Andrew, and it's like, okay, an icebreaker, if you will. Have something in it. Don't just, you're not Soviets. This is my name. Here's my info. Please reach out. But the other thing is, don't. I get some emails where I always say, like, massive emails are bought, or text from the wife. Sometimes, it's big long bodies of words, or like a goalie blocker. All you do is you're just deflecting. Like, I don't have time to read
for sure
8 paragraphs. It's just.
No, I know.
Right? Yeah. Especially, like, you do the same thing. Like, you touched on it. I coached juniors. I was in that realm for, I don't know, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. It's like, I went from being the guy that, it's the same recruiting process. Just now the kids are faster, and then selling the kids to college. Now I'm on the college side, acquiring the players. But keep it sweet, man. Like, there's nothing you're going to write that I'm going to go, oh my goodness, I've never heard of you, and I've watched that league, but I got to have you. It doesn't happen in today's world.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, with, like, just that finding commonality. When we talk to kids about sending an email to a college coach, reference that past weekend's games, or reference a major academic interest that they have on campus.
So that's a big one.
You brought up one thing about the advisor part. How often do you communicate with advisors at the NCAA Division I level? There's a hot button issue, but I'm going to, I know that you're going to give a great answer, so I'm laying it up for you.
The most PC answer. That's delicate landscape. That's
for sure.
Thorn bush growing on a soil in a plastic bag. I deal with advisors every single day. I will
Don't look
just
too
say,
pleased.
well, you got to.
You got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I'm not even going to go there. I will say, there are advisors that are NHLPA agents as well, or a part of agencies, and they're a whole different echelon, and when you're involved with those guys, like, it's business, and every team's involved with them. And you go look at the Frozen Four right now, and I bet you every kid on those rosters is to a certain group of agencies. It is what it is. Unfortunately, I'll say this. I think in the last 10 years, becoming an advisor has just fermented into a new norm. And there's a lot of people that never had any skin in the game. And I think there are some advisors out there that do it just to profit, and that's their job. Respect, like, you found a market, like, my job is I wake up and do recruiting, and work with goalies. So to each their own. I don't hold that against them, but you tend to see a lot of God, I was hoping we would avoid this one. When an advisor reaches out, no, it's all good. When an advisor reaches out to us, I'd say 90% of the bullshit factor is gone. Okay. Like, you're not calling me on a certain kid playing in a tier 3 league in the Southeast. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. They know better.
Yeah.
And it does. Unless that kid's real young. If he's an 05, 06, let's look at him on the radar and so forth. But no disrespect to said unnamed league, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but you get all the advisors, and then again, right now with the portal, that's their job. And I didn't look it up, but there's over 200 kids in the portal right now. And what that means is it's 200 kids that played D1 this past year that are in the portal, and their advisors are hammering phones because they got to find homes for the kids, and respect to them. But I deal with advisors every day. I don't think an hour goes by where I don't get a text from an advisor. Some of which you both have known me for years, especially Andrew. I can be the nicest teddy bear in the world, and I can be just, Colonel Power and bark right at you. How about you introduce yourself before you tell me that I'm insane not to take a kid? That's my little soapbox thing. Do you know my roster? Do you know my locker room? Do you know my head coach? Do you know our style of play? How does this kid help my team?
But what is in the last 30 years, you've been coaching, you have a wealth of experience at multiple levels, had success at all those levels. What have you really seen the biggest change in the last 30 years in the players and that recruiting process? What does that look like, the evolution of that process to you?
That process used to be kids reaching out, doing the work. You go back to 2008, 9, even at the tier 3 level. Actually, when I started, it was junior B tier 2. It was before USA Hockey flipped to the tier 1, 2, 3 standard. They had junior A, B, C. Actually, it might have been junior C. Now I think about it. But we didn't care. But you posted tryout dates. Kids were calling from around the country. You hosted a tryout. You made a team. You went to work. There were some trades. We didn't trade people to make us better at that time. It was, here's a kid from New England, and he's obviously homesick. And it's like, what? I got a buddy coaching the Wolves out there. Andrew's got a kid from Chicago. Let's swap so the kids are closer to home. So you did what was best for the kids. Not that they don't do what's best for the kids now. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not a buzz one-liner that gets us in trouble. But
you're all good.
It was a completely different paradigm. I was in Springfield before I even heard of an advisor, and I was like, do what? I remember looking at the kid that I brought up from tier 3, and then he had an advisor, and I was like, what? Why? What's he doing? I didn't understand the concept. It was foreign to me. But that was 2010. So you're kind of like, okay. Whereas now the first question you ask is, who's your advisor? And it's rare you get a kid that says, I don't have one. If they do, you're kind of like, oh, it's an orphan. You love them. But it's everyone's got one. It's just part of the trade, if you will, anymore. But I think just the general youth has changed. You look at all the crap going on in our country right now. We didn't have that 25 years ago and 15 years ago, and kids were harder, like I tell my own kids, my son's 13, I love him to death, but don't leave the house without a cell phone. I want it, we got little trackers. Where are you? I was 13. I lived in Japan. I was at Yokota Air Force Base. I didn't have a phone. My brother and I get on a bike, go to Tokyo Disneyland on Saturday afternoon if we wanted to come back, and then dad's not there, and you find out, oh, you know what? He got on his C-130 and had to, hop over to, Kadena, or something. And you're just like, all right, but, we lived in a military community, and I looked just like my dad, so I couldn't go anywhere without someone going, oh, it's Colonel Power. But nonetheless, it's just the times have changed, right? Whereas now the parents are extremely involved. Social media has changed the game. You can do almost all your recruiting via social media. Everybody wants to flash. Everybody wants that. I'm involved in our social media, and it's funny, we track all the metrics, and there's certain things you post, you got 200 likes in a matter of 5 seconds. You can see what the parents repost, et cetera, et cetera. I got an email from a parent, my son's never in any of the pictures, and I'm going a funny story. And I had the kid come to me. He's like, how come you don't use me in any of our stuff? And I go, I don't take your photos, bro. I'm on the bench. And he's like, yeah. I go, we played, I think, 30 games on the road this first year. I go, we don't have a photographer with us. It's what the other team takes. He's like,
Right.
okay. I go, they're not really taking photos of us carrying the puck, making their guys look bad, right? So unless you throw a big hit, or there's a scrum at our net, there's no photos. And he's just like, oh shit, I didn't think about that. And I'm like, so then the next game, I went over to the photographer. I found him, and I was like, hey, can you do me a favor? I need you to take a photo of number 79. We don't have a 79. Let's just save this number. I have nothing of them. And they were just like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. He got the best photo because it's him with the puck. Everyone else is like, WTF? Because the photographer had to go out and find them. But social media is probably the biggest game changer. The kid commits to us. It's like it's not official until he posts it on Twitter.
Yep.
The problem is some of these kids that post it. Yeah, but he posted on Instagram, their connection and their friend network, they all see it to the tunes of thousands. Well, I might not follow you on Instagram, or your settings to private, and so you put it on Twitter. I had a few kids, they had to go make a Twitter profile just to make their announcement. And then all of a sudden you see it populating all like Heisenberg's list and everything else. And I'm going, it's like you people don't believe. If I said, hey, I went recruited Andrew, nobody believes me. He puts it on Twitter with the.
I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, no shit. Well, then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, Jason and Lindenwood recruited this kid. We saw it on Twitter. And you're going, okay. So social media is a big thing. I think social media is also held people more accountable. Like you can't sit there and BS kids, or if you're going to run that, we don't have it obviously at our level, but just speaking of junior teams, and exactly what team I'm referring to, like if you don't have your shit together, every kid's going to talk about it, whether it's from building to jerseys, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, I think it's helped, like when I first got the Null in 2010, you had a couple, you can go read up on it. There was a couple shady operators, and it's, but you didn't have social media. Twitter just kind of started. Nobody was on Facebook. MySpace was still around. Nobody talked about it. Nowadays, if you pulled some of those stunts, nowadays we see the videos of kids pushing buses, or, during COVID, kids having to take taxis to the rink because of the stupid rules. But that stuff hits social media in 2 seconds. And the whole hockey space is aware of it, and it's changed how you do things because you got to mind. Some people they had to up their game. They had to mind their P's and Q's. So I think social media is probably had the biggest impact for change.
I agree with you. I think that, like you said, it has held a lot of organizations accountable, and it's really given a lot of transparency to a lot of parents. If you're not a good operator, like your kids, there's visual evidence and proof of that you're not doing the right things. Now, when it comes to recruiting, obviously parents are like, oh, my kid does this well, my kid does this well, but it might not always fit within your roster and what your needs are. When you're looking at a kid, what are some boxes they have to check off for you to recruit that kid?
So, obviously you kind of start in certain leagues, we, here in the States, obviously USHL and North American League is the two big hitters for NCAA Division I. Then you get up into Canada, you got the BC, the AJ. I think the AJ is kind of becoming the number one league, but that's my personal opinion. And then the Saskatchewan League, like we recruited heavily in it this past year. There were some absolute ball players, and then we're fortunate to get them. They put up points and they can fly, and so you're like, all right. I don't get out east. I get asked this question every year, like at an America Showcase, the high school showcase that's in my rink in 3 weeks. I do a seminar, and everyone's like, how come I don't see NCDC kids or kids CCHL or GoJ or OJ? And I go, hey, listen, I don't have anything against those leagues. It's nothing against them. It's just I'm in the middle of the USHL. I'm a 5-hour drive from, 75% of the league. Yeah. I'm an hour from Springfield. I'm 4 hours from Janesville. I'm in the thick of it. And then I only have so much of a budget, right? It's a business. And for me, I can spend money and get up to Canada and hit it, and win my jackpots. So it's I tend to go there, everyone's got their honey hole, like every team does. You can pull up anybody's roster and start to see a picture. Yeah, where they get their kids. Obviously, Big Ten schools, you're like, wow, the entire team's USHL, like as it probably should be. It's the number one league in the world, So yeah, you tend to. What I look for first off is, let's use the USHL for example. Every kid in that league that is eligible is going D1, no questions asked. It's just a matter of where do they fit for the teams. So for us, we put a huge emphasis on what you're doing away from the puck. Like Trev might be skating down the left wall. I'm like, who cares? I'm watching what the 4 other guys are doing. I want to know what you do away from the puck. Are you a cigar store Indian just, stoic and standing still and watching? Are you a guy that checks off, sees a guy, strides over 2 shifts to his right, puts a stick on the glove? You're not doing anything, you're not interfering, but just letting that guy know you got him covered and cutting his lanes. That's a big one for me, is what you're doing away from the puck. 2, body language. Body language tells you everything. Seeing a kid how you respond. If you go back to the bench and you're barking at somebody else, I'm like, yeah, I ain't going to do that on my bench, buddy. Like if you're going to be that guy that's chirping and barking other guys in your room, you're playing for the wrong 2 coaches, because Rick's not putting up with it either. Trust me. So body language is a big thing. What you're doing on the bench, what you do away from it. Like, I want to see you frustrated. If you come in and throw a muffin of a bad pass and you just act like it didn't bother you, that bothers me. Like it should bother you. Like show a little frustration. But show some frustration with yourself. Look at your partner and go like, "Hey, man, I got it. I'll get you back next time." Trust and own up to it. And you're going like, "That's a man." That's what I want. I want guys that can carry the freight. We put a huge onus on guys that wear letters. It doesn't. If you were a captain in the NA and you got called up to USHL, you don't have a letter. That's fine. I know you at one time had a C or an A. We had an issue at our national title game last year where I remember, I think at the end of the first period, I could be wrong, but I think we were down 2-1 and I was livid. I walked in our locker room and we don't really, like there's a time and a place, and Rick and I are kind of like, what should we say? And we walk in and one of the kids was just staring at us. He's like, we look around the room and everyone's calm. And I'm like, okay, it was kind of weird. And they're like, "Coach, we got this." And I go, "Oh yeah, we got 20 captains in the locker room basically." And then we just went on and diarrheaed the scoreboard. I think it was like 6-2 or 8-1, 8-2, 8-3. Just, and so you got to have trust in your players, but those guys have all they've led their rooms to where I go, this is why we recruited. Like when we started our recruiting process for NCAA hockey, I said, I want to have a Navy SEAL mentality. Well, unfortunately, that's kind of become cliche everyone uses now. So I tell kids, like, I'm not the thinnest guy. Like, I don't need you to run through a wall for me. I need you to run through it, come back, and then make it wider so that I fit behind it. Like that's the kind of MF that I want in our locker room. And you're willing to just eat shots, and block shots, feel no pain, get after it for the team. And I think that definitely helped with our success. Obviously, still growing pains after our first year of D1, but that's what we look for. So it's, are you willing to do everything? Cycle back to your question. It's like what you're doing away from the puck, your body language, what are your habits on the ice? Are you willing to sacrifice and go and get after it? Those are the biggest things, because everybody's different. I don't need 20 guys that are all magicians with their hands. Like you remember the old Nintendo game? You could pick the skinny guy with the hands, the regular guy, or the heavy guy that threw the body. You had to have all 3 to win the game. It just depends. The other thing is, like when you go to some of these games, I've got to take notes on kids that are committed, just so that, because they might deco. That happens a lot. All of a sudden a kid decos and you're like, what? And you want to be first in line on it. So I take notes on those kids. My eyes tend to go more towards the guys that are uncommitted, clearly, if I'm at a game. And then it just kind of, where do they fit? Where would I see them in our lineup? If I know Trevor's graduating, is this kid going to bring the same attributes that he has? Do I want an identical player to that? Do I want the same skill set? So I go into a game, obviously scouts, you walk in, everyone's got their lineup sheet, it's got all the players, and the logo. Some people are shocked they've never seen it. And I'm going like, oh my goodness. Like your AAA teams, please make those at games, have them on your website. There's nothing worse. I go watch a AAA game and there's no nameplates on the jersey. And I don't know who that is, because if I go and find you on Elite Prospects, I don't know that's actually number 23.
Right.
Or there is no 23. And I go, what are we doing here? So you get those lineup sheets, or we got RinkNet, so I can already have my notes kind of set up in front. You walk in, I tend to, by the time I'm in a rink, let's say November on, I already have an idea who I'm there to watch. And so it's just, I call it the eyeball checks. As a staff, we've put hours into the team. We have done our diligence. So it's one of those, like, we already got notes on everybody. Now I'm walking in, I'm fine tuning. Like, what did we miss? What did the camera not get? The camera can't see a kid's eyes. Did he just magically pull that pass out of the air, or did he see it coming? I tend to go stand not directly behind the net, but kind of off to the corner because I like to see the game north-south. It's the goalie coach in me. So I can see that. I can see plays develop. That, and I don't have to move my neck like this, left to right, like a cat watching tennis. But so you look at that stuff, you're definitely looking for, perseverance as well. The other thing is you kind of like to track the kid. I know on EP you can show everything he's done over the years. Like, is he consistent? And not saying, oh, he's inconsistent, like he just came out of nowhere. Sometimes that's what you want. Kid has an ceiling, and you need that. Like, we recruited a kid, I think, the numbers will be wrong. I think maybe last year he had 20 points. This year he's at like 7. It's like, well, what'd you do all summer? And he's like, I did X, Y, Z, elemental P. And you're like, that's what I need. Because you put in the work, now you're seeing it fruition. Now we're going to push that envelope, make it even bigger. So that's the stuff that I look for. I don't need the, this is just my bias. I had 2 parents. Well, we're 5 generations deep military in my household. It's one of these things, like, I don't need what I call the junior hair and the visor tipped up. Like, I almost just, I don't need that stuff, because that ain't going to float in our program.
Sure.
I want guys that are showing up and they look professional. They know what they're doing. I'm also a guy that gets there early, and I'm kind of chubby at my elder age. So I just kind of sit off in the corner, but I'm watching. I like to see who's out doing what for warm-ups, stretching, and goalies, like, who's doing juggling, who's just too cool for school, because that's going to tell me a lot about you. Like, I like to think I do a lot of recon on the guys that we talk to and reach out to before we even get to that stage. So
There's so much great information there, Jason, for, like, not only kids who are looking to get recruited or have the ambition to play in college hockey, but also for parents, coaches, and advisors. That's awesome stuff. Trevor, what do you have for Jason?
I think the biggest question that I had, and it's even for my own insight to learn, is, we talk about, again, recruiting. Everybody thinks it's like this huge pool of players, but how many kids are you really looking for in any given season to come in?
So great question. Let me break it down and explain to you the pool. So in USA Hockey, or in the United States, there's about 23,000 kids per birth year, right? So in juniors in hockey, you got a 5-year window. So right now it's 02s, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6s. 06s can't be playing. So immediately right off the hop, you're going, there's 110,000 American-born players eligible to play junior hockey. When you look at the big two, let's just say the USHL and all, I don't think there's 800 roster spots between the 2 leagues. You add in all of the the other leagues. I don't even like saying tier 3 anymore. So most of you guys, it's tier 2.5. Like the bar. No, but the bar is being raised, and it's great. But you add in everything else, and I think the number spikes up to about 3,000 roster spots. So if you only had Americans playing junior hockey, you're at 2% of the entire player pool. Okay.
Wow.
The problem with that is now you add in Canada, you add in Europe. So that player pool, you immediately lose 25% of it, because some of the leagues can have more Euros and Canadians than others, and obviously USHL, I believe you're still capped at 4 imports plus 2 Canadians. I mean, you can have 6 Canadians and 4 Euros and 2 Canadians. And the null might be the same. And some years goalies count, some years don't. But my point is, it's like that player pool in the U.S. bottlenecks. So when people are like, well, why aren't you watching high school hockey? I'm like, well, because if I go to Minnesota and watch high school hockey, and I do, but I'm not delusional. Those kids have got like 6 schools that are on their bucket list before, they come to us. So it just is what it is, right? We find our spots elsewhere, but in that bottleneck is what you're watching. So on average, an NCAA team without the portal, you're probably bringing in 6-7 kids a year, because you're carrying a roster of 26 to 28, 29 guys. So you're going, okay, that's 7 kids per class. You add in the portal, it just makes everything goofy. Like you can't predict for the portal. You don't know. You can't predict it. You're going to put a kid in. A kid puts himself in. Another kid that you wanted Like a kid that we were recruiting last year went somewhere and we're like, oh, good for him. And then he put himself in the portal. He wasn't getting enough playing time. And you're going like, oh, like now he's available, but it turns into, you only have so much money. My biggest advice to families is they all think every kid, college, scholarship. I watch families spend hundreds of thousands of dollars banking on their kid playing college for free. I go, stop. You're limited to 18 scholarships. Like I said, 28 kids. I throw a shout out to Jason at Maine. He had this, and I steal it from him because I was like, what a great analogy. You got to think of it like a chocolate bar with 18 pieces. You got to share that in the room. Well, the reality is your top 6 forwards, top 3D, and your starting 2 goalies are each taking a full piece. So 11 pieces are gone, and you're going like the 17 other kids, you've got 7 pieces to split. Not everybody's getting a piece. There are guys that are full pay. You hear the term walk on. Well, walk on, back in the 70s and 80s, you showed up to a tryout and made the team. That's not the case anymore. Nobody does that. Now it's meaning you're a full pay kid, but and God bless and respect them. The kids are willing to pay the price and they get the time. So I wish parents would stop thinking, oh, my kid, if I go to another showcase, if I do more private lessons, it'll pay off. It can. I'm not saying it can't, but your odds are so narrow, like why would you want to do that? There was here in St. Louis, there was a family that, had played for a club and, they made the comment, like, well, we wasted $200,000 trying to get my kid into this. And, the club fired back. You could have chose any school in the country and just put it in a hedge fund or, a CD and then paid for his college. Like kid could have gone to Harvard.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what people, you got the wrong process, like
For sure.
the system's not messed up. If the system was messed up, it'd be haywire. It's not, like everybody knows who's doing what.
Right.
So
that's great information. Again, for me, like as not only as a coach, but just in general, I've always been curious about how many players actually are you guys looking on that radar, and that's some valuable information.
So we've got software systems everybody does, and then I'm still a big Google Docs guy, but it's kind of like I can see my roster next year. I know what leaves out, what the holes are the following year. So you can start mapping out and projecting. Like right now, I'm already recruited some 06s. They're not coming in for 3 years, but you're going like, whoop, they're on page 4 of the doc. They're right there, and then I know the holes that are got to fill in behind them. And then I color code them, so it's like ideally here's a freshman, but it'll say in parentheses 03/04. So you kind of know what birth years you're shopping in,
right.
And so forth. So when you look at our roster, my entire decor was freshmen and sophomores.
Wow.
So am I really recruiting any defensemen? I have 1D coming in next year. But so when you look at it, you go, am I recruiting any D in the next 2 years? It's not to say that I can't. If the high-end kids out there and we make magic happen, well, you're also in today's sport where playing time's earned, and if something better is going to come along, it behooves us. I got to better our program. So, but
That's awesome.
So there's a lot of projecting out. It's not like juniors. I'll say this. In the NA, you knew who you were aging out. You protected who you were returning, and you had open camps. You'd have 300 guys at. You're like, okay, we all saw through that whole thing. And then you had a main camp with 60 guys, and you were trying to fill out your team from there. And then you were waiting for cuts out of the USHL, or even in the USHL, you're having to try out 85, 90 guys, and you narrow it down. But you were narrowing it down out of what was right there. This isn't the case. This I've got to map out and project. So that's different from juniors. That was a learning curve. And then to go how we did it, they were an ACHA, no pun intended, a powerhouse. We still have an ACHA program. They're still phenomenal. I think there's 3 kids on that team that played in the mall. One was a full timer for a couple of years, but he didn't show up thinking he was making our team. He knew what it was, but he had D3 offers, and you go at the end. I'm going to side rant here. This is my pitch for ACHA hockey. People sometimes look down on it. I go, you're delusional and you're dumb because you've never watched it. It's phenomenal hockey, and these kids play the damn hearts out. And at the end of the day, you're going to college for 4 years. Put yourself to have the best experience. I coached so many kids here in St. Louis that went to Ole Miss, had the best time of their life. You know, like Ole Miss versus some NCAA D3 schools up north. Like, it's not even the same. You know, like Alabama, like huge schools.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want that experience? You know, and the hockey's phenomenal. You know, and so like we have guys that come to our school, our entire ACHA program, every kid played juniors. You know, and it's phenomenal. You know, but when you look at those top 10 teams, they're all heavy hitters like that. You know, and it's great hockey. So.
Excuse me.
Bless you twice. Yeah.
Did you get any
so it's one of those.
Yeah, we're good. Sorry about that.
I think I got some on mine. Came in my stream. You know?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? No, but it's like it's great hockey, and you find a good fit. You know, so it's.
There's so many kids that I couldn't agree with you more. Like, you know, we don't, you know, our league is very much about putting kids into Division II and Division III, but you know, there's some kids academically that's not the right fit for them, and who can do other things. We've had 2 kids in the last 3 or 4 years go to, you know, NYU, really good academic school, and that they had some offers for you know, MASCAC schools, and it wasn't comparable for the overall picture of what their life could look like if they go to that higher end academic school. So I couldn't agree with you more.
I mean, I'm in Illinois. You don't think a degree from U of I is a good degree? Like, are you kidding me? That thing's solid gold in the state. Why wouldn't you want to go
that last time?
You know? Yeah, I know, but it's like, well, I didn't listen, but I don't, you know, I'll save my opinions for them. You know, but nonetheless, they're going, here's a Big Ten school that's phenomenal, unbelievable campus. You wouldn't want to go there. If they had NCAA hockey, you'd want to go there. So at the end of the day, you're willing to say, yeah, it's a phenomenal degree. Why wouldn't you go there? You know, like if you're playing Tier 3, it's a phenomenal option.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know, there's so many schools out there, and I'm sure people say about us, you know, never heard of it. It's like, okay, I get that, you know, but you know, right now we've got a carrot we can dangle. You know, but even as an ACHA D1 team, we commanded kids out. You know, like you had the respect, and you're getting high end players. You know,
Absolutely.
our ACHA D2 team. Shout out to Gary, James, and Timmy. Phenomenal program. Great coaches. They're still getting high end kids. You know, and like I said, respect to those kids. They're not showing up trying to slide, you know, down the hall. They know what they came for, and they're like, let's have the best college experience we can. You know, they still get sticks. They get gloves. You know, they practice every single day. And I'm going like, you know, it's good hockey. And I don't think people give it enough. You know, and St. Louis ACHA hockey is outstanding. You know, Maryville, give them credit. John down there is doing a great thing. You know, he's got his programs going both on the men's and women's side. McHenry, he's got a good program. You know, then you've got SLU, SIUE, WashU, I think still has a team. Mizzou's got teams. I mean, you stretch it down to Springfield, Missouri, Missouri State, phenomenal program. It's unbelievable. If you're a kid in St. Louis, you know, then shout out St. Louis, my home, but you have so many hockey options. It's nuts, you know, so.
Well, that's good stuff, Jason. Trevor, do you have anything last for Jason here?
No, I mean, that's about it. Again, I mean, thanks for coming on. It was very informative here, and
yeah, just great information for parents and coaches for sure, and players,
and even me. So that, but thanks a lot, Jason, and we appreciate your time and your insight.
You know, for you guys, anytime. You know, granted, when the schedules line up, I know we had a few hiccups to get this, but
yeah.
Always a pleasure. Love to hop back on.
Yeah, so definitely thank you to Coach Power with Lindenwood University for coming on. We definitely, I mean, Andrew and I both know we definitely could have gone a lot further with that conversation, and Coach Power definitely, I'm sure would have loved, definitely we'll have him on again because he's
absolutely.
You know, he's just full of information. The one thing I like about Coach Powers is that he's honest. He tells you kind of like it is, and you know, he's got a unique way of telling you it, but he definitely he tells it. He gives you, you know, again, might not be what you want to hear, but he tells it like it is. So, what did you think of that interview, Coach?
I thought it was a great segue. You asked a great question about great question about just the numbers game, and he gave a great breakdown in terms of, you know, the birth years that are eligible, who's playing junior hockey, how many kids are involved in hockey within those birth years. And then it's a pretty small number. But then he goes, well, we also recruit in Canada and in Europe. And it's like that margin to get into NCAA Division I hockey is pretty slim. So kids have to keep their options open. And he made a great, sales pitch for ACHA hockey and, what they've done at Lindenwood with the ACHA program. So it was really enlightening on that end. We always know the numbers, but it's like he spelled them out in great detail. How about yourself?
No, and again, that was, my big thing going into it was I've always been curious, how that works because, again, I know people in the college hockey, but I've never really actually sat down and talked about it. And, again, with the transfer portal now, that's a big thing for me. I was just like, I'm curious about this. So hearing about it, I think it also it's a little bit of a sobering information, I guess you could say, of, okay, so this is what it really looks like to try and make that D1 level. And I can only think the numbers are even smaller at the D3 level, which kind of puts it back into, his and my and, all of our opinions of ACHA hockey is not a bad spot for a player to end up, both not only school wise, but also just compete wise. The quality, it's gotten so much better over the last 10, 15 years, even the last 5 years, it's gotten so much better. So, learning about that, like literally how many guys are they looking to take? And again, it's small. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden they're just turning over, a class every year of, full squad. Like you might with your junior team or even half a squad say they're aging out. It's 4 or 5, guys, and they're already branching out 3 years, 3-4 years later. So, that definitely was, again, I really enjoyed that. The whole interview as a whole, but that was really kind of eye-opening for me and also very informative. So,
and he mentioned a great, just in terms of, what his runway looks like. When what birth years here, what defensemen, forwards, goalies here, and the investment of time and resources he's making in before he finally, offers a scholarship or a partial scholarship or no scholarship, right. What that looks like to a kid. And that's important to consider too, is like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's not just about, oh, I had a good weekend. I had a couple goals, at this showcase, because a good weekend is like a fart on the radar of a college recruiting process.
No, yeah.
It's a multi-year process.
And, again, from my standpoint with the youth level of, especially, my years at the 16U and the 18Us and let's do this tournament or let's do this one. Oh, they're going to have, this coach is here or they're going to, my kid wants to get, it's like, look, I know going to this tournament out here, there's not going to be a NCAA Division I coach. There's not going to be an NCAA D3 coach. There's probably not even be ACHA coaches because where we're playing, and and he alluded to it, he's not taking really looking at guys. Not that it's anything against you guys on the East Coast, but it's just not in his wheelhouse. It's not in his budget, And when I've had parents say, "Oh, let's do this," or "Why can't we play in this league because they do these showcases?" It's like, look, we're in the middle of Ohio or Michigan or something. And I go, a lot of these teams, they don't have the time right now to come watch, our level of play. If they're looking for AAA players at this time, if they're even looking at this at that time, and again, he alluded to the video, the Instat, all that type of stuff. So it's kind of, it makes me feel better because it's like, hey, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm telling you the truth. Like their coaches are not, they've only got a finite amount of time and resources, you said. So how much of the pie are they using and where's it going to? And no offense, but it's not going to our AA players at this point. It's going to those kids that are really going to make a difference for them in the next 3-4 years at the highest levels. If you can get yourself into those higher levels and then potentially be looked at, but again, it's kind of just putting things in reality, and I get it. Everybody has their own visions of grandeur that we want, and, especially as parents, they want, but like Coach Trevor has somewhat of an idea of what he's talking about. So that's my own little tooting my own horn. But
the initial way I met Coach Power was through Mark Kumpel. Mark Kumpel used to run the EHL. He was a great mentor. He actually actually was coaching back in our league on a short-term basis this past spring. But he recruited Coach Bauer to run a camp out in St. Louis as like an ID skate for our league. And that's how I first met Jason. But Mark really did a great job with our league in kind of changing that dynamic. Junior hockey used to be, we're going to play on Saturday night at 7:00. We're going to get 300 fans in the barn. We're going to make it like a community event. But, as junior hockey expanded, it watered down the event of junior hockey. Mm-hmm. And Mark said, how we're promoting our league is we're making it attractive to college coaches and we're getting college commitments. So now you see out of our league, we have a lot of, Friday games at 12 noon.
Yep.
Because college coaches can make that game, or a Thursday or a Wednesday game at 12 noon. We have our showcases. They usually end on a Monday because college coaches usually give their kids a Monday off during the season. Right. And we kind of tailored it to what worked to the college coaches. He would send out a questionnaire, he'd get feedback, and then he'd present that. Like we used to do a showcase down in Philadelphia. Well, there's only 3 or 4 NCAA schools in the greater Philadelphia area. So now we do them all in Massachusetts. And yeah, that affects the travel budget for our Southern teams. But where are our kids going? They're mostly going to MASCAC schools, going to NESCAC schools, going to CCC and UCHC schools that are all located within an hour and a half of greater Boston. So I think that's important to consider too, is when you're getting recruited or you're recruiting kids, it's got to be about convenience. Right. And Jason really hit on that.
No, for sure. And that's it's one thing that I've liked about the EHL model. I think I actually had heard about that ideology from Bill Zanaboni when I was at I had a showcase. I forgot I was a scout there but I got to sit on the panel and all I did was basically hold the wall up because I was just but that's a story for another day. But yeah, he had brought that up. This is why we do this. This is why we do it. Our games at this time. This is why we play during the week. And I was just like, God, that makes so much sense. Why isn't anybody else doing that? But, so I love that. And I think it's, again, that really sets the players up for, it gives them more opportunity for success.
Yeah, and it might not get 100 more commitments a year, it might not get 30 more commitments a year, but it gets 1 or 2, and those kids, like he said, if you get a chance to choose between, let's say a kid has the same amount of points in Chicago, or as he does the same amount of kids in Boston, and they're playing basically relatively the same level, but you get that kid in Boston on campus, and you saw him at the rink in person, and you have a little bit of a relationship, man, it makes it easier to sell that kid to your school because you know what you're getting. You have a better chance. It's like, yep. Buying groceries. I could go to the place way down the road. It might be a little bit better eggs, but I'm going to choose these because of convenience.
No, for sure. No, and again, that's definitely an interview that definitely got to go back and listen to again for everyone that's listening, myself, because again, there's just so much good quality information, and we'll definitely have to have him on again and, see if he can steal a little bit more of that.
Absolutely. All right. What do we got for our 5 myths this week, Trevor?
So we went, it was your call, so I left it up to you, and usually you're the one with the better ones. So it's, we're doing the 5 myths on college recruiting, but we're doing it from a player's, athlete's perspective. So Coach, you're the first, it's your topic. You go first.
Okay. Number 1, going there just to play hockey. We mentioned this a little bit in the call with Coach Power. It's got to be about the entire experience of going to college. You can't just be like, the first coach who talks to you, he likes me as a player. Well, sign me up for 4 years at the tune of 30, 40 grand a year. No, it's got to be a school that fits academically. It's got to be a campus that you like. That's, that fits into your living and lifestyle. It's got to have, and then the hockey's just a piece of that. It's more than just the hockey.
No, I mean, it's, again, as I said before, you're a student athlete. At the end of the day, this might be your last year of playing competitive hockey. Or not last year, but last 4 years.
Yeah.
So you've really got to get the most out of it. And especially with, your school. And that's kind of what leads into mine was that, the grades, grades are okay. I don't have to worry too much about my grades. It's like, well, no, you do. Again, for these colleges, as I said before, if you want to get recruited, you need to keep your grades up. You need to have those testing, those scores. Got to keep them up. It's okay if, again, as I said, you're not a most studious person. There's a lot of us out there, but that doesn't mean you can't at least try. Again, a coach doesn't want to come in and see a kid who's got a 2.0 and when he could take a kid who's got a 3.0 and it's almost the same player. Like, you gotta, again, stack the deck, put yourself in the best position to succeed. And again, if you have a 2.0, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh no, you're not gonna be able to play college hockey. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. It's just, what are you doing to try to improve those grades? Because you can at least go in and say, you know what? Here's what my grade point average is. Because I remember, and again, this will go into when we're talking about the juniors, but I remember going and talking to players, and I had to ask them, like, hey, what's your GPA? Because again, junior programs, you guys don't want to bring in a guy who's got a low GPA because again, you don't know how it's going to track. You don't know what's going to end up happening with that kid. And again, it looks better for you to have high, I don't want to say intelligence. Intelligence is the wrong word, because a lot of guys, as we said before, like, Bill Gates didn't even finish college. But you want to be able to promote that you move players into high academics, or they've improved their academics, going not only their hockey ability. So yeah, what I'm trying to get to this in so many words, is just basically, you can show improvement, and when a coach says, yeah, you're like, coach says, what's your GPA? And you're like, I got a 2.3. Like, okay. But you look at him and say, but you know what? I struggled in this area here and there, but I've taken on some extra tutoring classes, or I've been doing this. I've been trying to retake the class, or, hey, you know what? I just had a really bad freshman year of high school, or, whatever. At least if you're showing that effort, then as a coach, I can, I feel more comfortable going in and saying, okay, you know what? This kid, he admitted that I appreciate that he admitted that he's got what he's got grade wise. And he's telling me, he's telling me all the right things. Now I just got to do my own homework and make sure he's doing it. And if he is, then good. So, so again, more or less, it is your student athlete, at the end of the day. So, make sure you're keeping those grades up.
Yeah, and just to follow that up too, in terms of your number two there, as a player or as an athlete looking to go to schools, you have maybe 60 NCAA Division I. You have only 7 schools NCAA Division II, and about 70 to 80 schools in Division III. That's a pool of 150 teams. So, and they're all over the map, and some that are really high academic standards, and some that don't have the greatest academic standards. So, but if you eliminate half those because you can't get in them because you have poor grades in high school.
Yep.
And that means, a good portion of the Division I, you might not even be a good enough player for. So now you're just left down to just a handful of teams which you can even be good enough player for. Now, if you're a goalie, what happens with half those teams already have goalies for the next 3 years because they have underclassmen goaltenders. So now you only have like 1 or 2 teams. So it's like really important. You open up as many options as possible by getting a good enough grade where you can get you in the most amount of schools. Simple as that.
Keep your net open. Not really keeping your net open, but keeping, no pun intended there. But all right, coach, what do you got for number 3?
Number three. Does the coach like me? Question mark.
What?
So we're dealing with a little bit of an issue here. One player in particular, the coach really liked him throughout the year. He applied, he got into the school, he went on a visit, and the coach really kind of made him commit on the spot at the Division III level. Said, we really like you, but we want you to make a decision, like now. And he said, well, then I'm in. And then he goes home and waits a couple weeks, and the coach said, well, I don't want the official commitment until like after we do player interviews at the end of the year. And he's kind of strung him along a little bit. It's like at a certain point you have to make a decision, like, I don't want to get gross and use the wrong language, but are you like friends with benefits, or are you like really in a relationship here? You know what I mean? Like, does the coach really like you? If he doesn't really like you, then, don't commit yourself to 4 years there, because you want to be in a situation where the coach is like excited to have you on campus, is an advocate for you, and like you're part of the culture. If he waffles on you, then if you got another year of junior, play that other year of junior. If you got other options to explore those other options. So I would say that you have to kind of read your coach and read the situation as best you can to find the right fit, because you want to go to a place where you can play.
No, absolutely. And again, it's supposed to be, they say high school's 4 years, best 4 years of your life, part of the best 4 years. College should be the same thing too. And if you're going to the rink every day, you don't know where you stand, you're not having fun, you don't like it, like, it's not going to be a great 4 years. You're
For sure.
You're setting yourself up for, potentially you're setting yourself up for failure. I'm not saying you shouldn't have to go through like stressful times to learn how to, deal with it, but you want to put yourself, as you said, in the best position to succeed. Know where you're at. There you go. That's what I'm going to say. Man, this is going to be a heavily edited episode for me.
This is going to be good, though. We've got good information in and that's what it's all about. Trevor, what do you got for 4?
4 is, I got to make sure that I got all these points. 4, basically is I need to be a top point producer. Stats, matter. And again, don't get me wrong, stats do matter. It definitely puts you on the radar. But even Coach Power, he acknowledges in the interviews where he said, I want guys that, for his school, what he's looking for, you can have great hands, this and that, but, coaches want guys that are going to get in front of the puck. They're going to do the dirty work, that are going to be playing for the team. Not just looking to light the lamp, just to pad their stats. And again, it definitely helps. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the game is definitely going in want skilled players, but you can be a, point per game player or just a little bit under a point per game player. But you know what? If you play, as a forward, if you're defensively, you play well defensively in your own zone, you're responsible. I see you're out there on the penalty kill. I see that you're always playing against the other team's top line, and oh, hey, you know what? Now I can see why you as a player, you're not a point per game player, or, as a defenseman, you're not, you don't got a ton of assists or this or that. Oh, I can see why. Well, it's because you're doing well in other aspects where some kids just don't give a shit. And that really, depending on the school and the club you're going to, again, coaches, okay, so some of us are dumb, but most of us, we're not dumb. We know what we're looking for. And we want those kids that are definitely going to be putting up the, playing for the team and doing the stuff that's going to really matter, because again, when you go up to that next level, it only gets faster. It only gets more skilled, tougher. And we wanted those kids, especially, I love that he said it. I really wanted to yell when Coach Power said it. I wanted to yell it louder for those in the back of playing away from the puck. Like,
for sure.
Like, you've got to know how to do that, because if you don't, the game's going to pass you by, and we've got plenty of cones. I don't need cones. I don't need people that are just going to stand around. So again, for me, it was, points don't always matter. They don't tell the full story. So, you know what, if you're in a cold streak, don't worry about it. Like, keep doing the right things and it'll change. And as coaches, we notice those things. And as Coach Power said, when he's looking at guys, they do their due diligence. They watch numerous games. It's not like they're just going to watch one. They're going to do one and done. I highly doubt that he's going to any showcase and watching a kid for one game, and all of a sudden he's just pulling that kid and here's a scholarship. I guarantee that's not happening.
For sure.
So make sure that you're doing, playing your best overall and not focusing so much on the numbers, because opportunity will come.
Yeah, I would just say, there's a lot of kids who weren't focused on just goals that I could tell some horror stories, but I'm not going to do that. But there's 2 kids in mind who their play away from the puck and their play in special situations did make them attractive to colleges right from our program. If you play a 60-minute game, you're going to have maybe 10 minutes of the game for power plays for yourself. You're going to have, 40 minutes of 5-on-5 action. And then you're going to have some 4-on-4 or special teams where you're down a man in the penalty kill. And if you excel in any one of those specific areas, you're making yourself more attractive to colleges. And we've had 2 players in the last, 6, 7, 8 years who, basically got to college because of their play as a penalty killer. Blake Harlow, he went to UMass Dartmouth. He was a kid from Alabama playing in our league. He was a good EHL player, but he led the nation the year he was his second to last year as before his age out year, at the tier 3 level in shorthanded goals. He had like 7 or 8 shorthanded goals that year. Unreal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then a couple years after that, during the COVID year, we had a kid, Andrew Lantry, who coach at SUNY Potsdam called Coach Tim Kuhns and said, we're looking for a kid who's just good in the locker room, can kill penalties for us, can play in late game situations, is a good kid, and academically could fit at our school. And he said, well, we have a kid from New York State, Andrew Lantry. He fits that bill, and now he's going into his junior year at SUNY Potsdam. So those things matter, and you gotta carve out a role for yourself.
Oh, that's fantastic examples. All right, you got number 5. What batting last here? What do you got, Coach?
Batting last. That's
batting last on the 1 through 5. Yeah,
I'm starting to sweat here.
Don't worry, the lineup flips over.
Leveling up. I've had kids say to me, well, maybe I'll play a year at Division 3 and then I'm going to play Division 1, or maybe I want to be here, but I want to play there. So leveling up. We had a coach in our league, Keith Acoyne. He played Division 3 Norwich, was a great player coming out of Massachusetts high school hockey, played at Norwich, was an unbelievable player there, and then played in the NHL. Yep, played like 12 years of pro hockey. So I would say, and Jason alluded to this in when he said dominate. Wherever you do go, focus on that level and being the absolute best player at that level. Don't be trying to level up. Well, if I'm good here for a year, then I'm going to go here. Or if I'm good here for a little bit, I'm going to cut ties and go to this school. No. If you're in college hockey, be the best player where you're at, and it'll lead to more things down the road. But those opportunities will come to you rather than you pursuing everything else. So I think leveling up is important.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that, the whole, dominate, he had his 2 Ds, he usually called them, and I love that. Yeah, just dominate where you're at. And so, yeah, I mean, you never know where the hockey road is going to take you. And as I said before, this could be the most likely, it's your last 4 years of competitive, checking hockey. For some players, it might not be. And as you said, with Coach Acoyne, but it happens all over, guys are going from D3 to pro. I mean, I've seen guys that were playing ACHA Division 1 and they've gone overseas and played, at a pro level. You never know. Again, those stories are few and far between, but you never know. Dominate where you're at. Focus on that, and then, let the chips fall where they may.
Absolutely.
Coach, I think this was a great episode. Very informative. Again, from your side, especially as a, GM and coach, with having to help try and move those players up to the college level, and then having Coach Power on for, what they're looking for at the D1 level. Wish them nothing but success, and they're in their recruiting time now. So, but you as well. And I think anything else before we sign off here?
No, you pump my tires, you pump Coach Power's tires. I'm going to pump your tires, Trevor.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
You crushed it. You brought some good points up, and I think we're hitting on all cylinders for sure. Good job, buddy.
This is this machine's running. It's going. We got one speed, and that's go. So I'm having fun. I'm having a blast. Hope the listeners are as well. I think this one, and I think the next one definitely, when we talk about really your sweet spot with the junior, recruitment, because that's that's the trail you're starting right now. You've already been on and you've been doing, but I think that's gonna be another phenomenal episode. So, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast here, the Hockey Toolkit, and make sure you're also subscribed to Coach Trimble's Hockey Planner on Substacks, and we'll talk to you. We'll have a good weekend, everybody. Have a good one, Coach.
You too, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.